upon a time, a long time ago, there lived a king named Midas. Midas was a very rich king, but he was not a happy king. For with all his treasures of gold and jewels, this greedy man still longed for more wealth. All day he would think only of gold. Restless nights as he tossed about on his royal bed, he dreamed of more gold. He wanted above all else to become the wealthiest man in the world, and often he would forget his young daughter Marigold, whom he truly loved very much. And so for long hours little Marigold played all alone among the lovely flowers of the spacious palace grounds. Bright, shining yellow flowers were her favorites, and she fashioned each day a bouquet of the most perfect of them to put upon the palace table. The choicest flower of the lot was always shared with her father, but greedy King Midas only sighed and thought, if only these flowers were real gold instead of merely golden color, then they would truly be worth the having. But Marigold loved the sweet-smelling flowers just as they were, and she hurried to place them in cool, fresh water, lest they wilt. The bright yellow color of the flowers reminded Midas of the golden coins and the treasures hidden deep in his castle dungeon, and he worried that perhaps someone had discovered them. "Who are you? And how did you get in here?" cried King Midas in great surprise. "It is of no matter," said the stranger. "But why are you not happy, King Midas? You have more golden treasures and more golden coins than you can possibly count in a day. Just what is it that will bring you contentment? What will satisfy you, King Midas?" King Midas sighed. "I have long dreamed of becoming the richest man in the world. I have only one wish. I wish that everything I touch would turn to gold. Then I could be truly happy." "Very well, then," the stranger said. "I will grant your wish. Tomorrow morning at early sunrise, you shall have what you desire. You shall have the golden touch. Use it wisely, King Midas. And now, farewell." Not wanting to go to bed lest he oversleep, the king dozed that night in a chair at the head of his dining table. At dawn, the golden rays of sunlight pierced the palace windows. King Midas awoke at once, eager to test the power of his promised golden touch. At First, the king could not believe it possible. But when he rapped upon the chair, he knew it to be solid gold. Then one slight touch of his hand, and his throne too turned to glittering gold. Now King Midas knew that as long as he lived, he, King Midas, would be the wealthiest man in the world. For who could have more gold than he? The golden touch made King Midas very happy. But as he sat down to eat breakfast, Marigold came in from the garden with an armful of golden flowers. "Look, father," she said sadly, "what has happened to my lovely flowers? They are hard and ugly and have no fragrance at all." "Wonderful, my dear," said the king. "They are real gold. Imagine real gold. Come now, sit down and eat your breakfast." King Midas was very hungry, but as he reached for an egg, it turned to gold at his touch. And as he picked up the loaf of bread, it too turned to gold. "Oh, this will never do," thought the king to himself. "Such a costly breakfast and not a thing to eat." He was angry with himself for ever having wished for the golden touch, and he was angry at the stranger for having granted his wish. It saddened Marigold to see her father so troubled. She wanted to comfort him. But when the old king touched her arm, poor little Marigold became a statue of rigid gold. King Midas, surrounded by all his golden treasures, now knew how all alone he was. Through his sobs, he heard the voice of the stranger. "Well, my friend, so you have made a discovery." Midas wept, for through his own greediness he had lost the one thing he truly loved. "Which would you rather have, Midas? The precious golden touch or a glass of cool water?" "A glass of cool water," cried Midas. "The golden touch or a crust of bread?" said the stranger. "A crust of bread," answered Midas eagerly. "The golden touch or your daughter?" "Oh, my child, my dear, dear child," wept Midas. "Very well then. If you wish to be relieved of the golden touch, wash your hands in the water of the river outside your garden. Then take a vase of the same water and sprinkle it over anything you wish to change back to its former state. Remember me." And the stranger disappeared. King Midas lost no time in obeying the stranger's words. He reached for an empty pitcher and ran for the river to fill it with the precious water. Shortly he returned and at once sprinkled it over Marigold's head. Soon all traces of the golden touch were gone, and he began to hate the sight of anything made of gold. The only gold that he did enjoy was the gold in his little daughter's hair. And so we are told they lived happily ever after. Once upon a time, very long ago, there lived a beautiful young girl in a high tower. Her name was Rapunzel, and she had long, beautiful yellow hair, as fine as spun gold. Years ago, an old witch had taken Rapunzel from her mother and father because they had stolen the witch's radishes. And now the old woman had locked Rapunzel in a lonely tower that had no doors and only one window at the very top. Each day when the witch came to visit the young girl, she took great care to be sure that no one would see her. Then she would call, "Rapunzel! Rapunzel! Let down your hair!" Rapunzel had to do as she was told, and soon her hair would ripple down over the windowsill like a gleaming golden waterfall. Then the old witch would cast a magic spell, and Rapunzel's hair would form into braids all by itself. The silken braids made a long golden rope for the old witch to climb. The old woman was very jealous of Rapunzel's beauty. Each day she would sit for hours watching her. They lived this way for several years, until one day a prince walking along the mountain path chanced to see the tower. He was surprised to find the tower in such a lonely place. Wanting to enter, he looked about for a door, but found there was none. Never before had he seen such a strange building with no possible way to enter. Just then the old witch came hobbling up the path. The prince had heard of the old woman who had magic powers. He did not want her to see him until he knew just what she was up to. The old woman did not see the prince, and she called as usual, "Rapunzel! Rapunzel, let down your hair!" And once again, Rapunzel's long yellow hair would ripple like a golden waterfall down the side of the tower. The prince had never before seen such beautiful hair and such a lovely face. And again the witch would cast her magic spell.
Somebody please join the chat. Anybody?
So that is how one enters the tower, thought the prince. And he waited for hours for the old witch to leave so that he could speak to the beautiful girl with the long golden hair. When the prince was sure that the old witch had gone, he called just as the witch had done. "Rapunzel! Rapunzel, let down your hair!" Rapunzel, thinking the old witch wished to climb back into the tower, lowered her braided hair once again.
Why is someone gonna join my chat? Oh yeah, because I already showed this. That's why.
Rapunzel was afraid of the prince, for she had never seen a young man before. But he was so kind and courteous that she soon forgot her fear. And now that the prince saw Rapunzel quite closely, she was even more beautiful than he had thought. And when he knelt and gallantly kissed her hand, it made Rapunzel very happy. The prince promised to return the following day and free her from her prison tower. The next day, the witch came to the tower at the usual time. Rapunzel absent-mindedly said to the witch, "How is it that you take so long to climb up to the window, while the prince climbs so swiftly?"
Prince? What prince?
Then she realized what she had said. "Oh, you wicked girl," cried the old witch. "I thought I had you safely hidden from everyone. Oh, how you have deceived me." And in a fit of anger, she seized a pair of scissors and cut off those long, wonderful golden braids. Just then, the prince arrived at the foot of the tower. He called, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair." So, thought the old witch, he has come back for her. And in her wicked mind, she planned to cast a magic spell upon the gallant prince and blind him so he could never again see Rapunzel. The poor prince escaped with his life, but the witch's curse left him blind and helpless. He sadly wandered off into the mountains, knowing that he could never look into the beautiful eyes of Rapunzel again. To punish Rapunzel for deceiving her and attempting to run away, the hard-hearted old witch took her to a far-away desert and left her there, with only bare rocks and a crude log shelter to protect her from the wind and the sun. The girl pleaded with the witch to take her back to the tower, but the ugly old woman had a heart of stone and would not listen. For many months, Rapunzel lived alone in the desert, with nothing to eat but the roots of desert plants. Until one day, the blind prince, who had been searching all over the land, chanced upon the very spot where his beloved Rapunzel was living. When she saw her gallant prince was blind, she wept. A large tear fell upon his eyes. It broke the witch's evil spell, and happily the prince once more could see his beautiful Rapunzel. The prince was sad to see her beautiful golden hair so short. But now that the magic spell was broken, when he touched her hair, it began to grow longer and longer until its wavy strands glistened again in the sunlight. prince then took his beloved Rapunzel back to his castle, where they had a royal wedding, and they lived happily ever after. Once upon a time, a little girl lived with her mother in a small stone cottage near the edge of a great forest. Everywhere the little girl would go, she always wore a beautiful red cape and hood. Soon she became known by everyone as Little Red Riding Hood. One morning, her mother asked her to carry a basket of cookies to her grandmother. Her mother told her not to leave the path or stop to talk to anyone on the way. Grandmother lived in a little yellow house at the other edge of the wood, and Red Riding Hood would have to hurry to return home before dark. After waving goodbye to her mother, she set out at once, carrying her little yellow basket over her arm. At first, Red Riding Hood walked straight along the bright forest path, but soon, near the riverbank, she saw a beautiful field of wildflowers. They were growing everywhere under the tall green trees. She thought it would be great fun to pick a few flowers to surprise her grandmother. Then she remembered. Her mother had told her she must not leave the path. But the day was so beautiful, the forest so friendly, and the flowers so colorful, that she thought there could be no harm in disobeying her mother just this one time. The flowers smelled so sweet, sweeter than peppermint candy. Then Red Riding Hood heard a gruff voice say, "Yes, they certainly are beautiful flowers." She turned and saw the big greedy wolf of the forest standing on top of a rock. Red Riding Hood had never seen a wolf before, so she was not afraid. She thought he was the biggest and most beautiful brown dog she'd ever seen. He appeared so friendly, too, when he spoke to her. She didn't know what a wicked animal a wolf could be. Mr. Wolf asked her what she was doing all alone in the forest. Red Riding Hood told him she was on her way to her grandmother's house with some fresh cookies and a bouquet of flowers. "And where does your grandmother live?" asked the wolf. "She lives in a small yellow house with a red roof just over the hill." "Well," said the wolf, "good day to you, my little girl." And he disappeared into the bushes. Red Riding Hood was disappointed to see the wolf go. She wanted him to stay longer, but it was getting late, and it was best that she be on her way. Meanwhile, Mr. Wolf ran slyly through the wood, along the path and over the hill, until he reached Grandmother's house.
Very well. I'm not going to be doing the whole thing, guys. Don't worry.
When Red Riding Hood arrived at her grandmother's house, she knocked at the door, but there was no answer. She knocked again, and a strange gruff voice said, "Lift the latch and come in." It was strange, but the bright sunshine of the forest made Grandmother's room appear very dark. It seemed so dark to Red Riding Hood that she could hardly see her grandmother in bed. Grandmother looked so different, and her voice sounded so deep and gruff. Perhaps Granny'd been ill with no one to look after her. "Oh, Grandmother, how you've changed. What long ears you have," said Little Red Riding Hood. "All the better to hear you with, my dear," replied the wolf. "Oh, but Grandmother, your nose. What a long nose you have." "All the better to smell with, my dear," replied the wolf. "Oh, Grandmother, what large eyes you have." "All the better to see you with, my dear," said the wolf. And then Red Riding Hood saw clearly his long, sharp teeth. "But Granny, what great sharp teeth you have." "All the better to eat you with, my dear." Grandmother was ever so grateful to see Red Riding Hood safe and sound. The brave huntsman was very proud of his trusty old gun. Grandmother and Red Riding Hood thanked him for killing the wolf and saving their lives. The hunter bade them farewell, proudly shouldered his gun, and marched back along the path to his home in the forest. Red Riding Hood was happy to know that the greedy wolf of the forest could never again frighten or harm her. So she started cheerfully for home to join her mother, where she lived happily ever after.
One, two, three, oh, just like Mama's big man. Oh, you'll never will see me before. No, yeah, now say like a nun to the baby. Come on, dear. Hurry up. Here, put on your hot coat now. Daddy's waiting. We're going to work today. See?
Come on now, make it snappy. Gotta move for our new house in the city. Come on, come on.
See? But hurry, we're moving to a nice, big new home.
This is where we're going to live. Yeah. This is a crazy house. We go back home. Home sweet home.
That home nice and warm.
This might be less longer than the last one. Mile. Go watch the movie. Here we are in court.
Gentlemen, we have here the finest piece of court place this time in Mississippi. What's the matter? This young and court letter scenario was born and bred in Princeton, Texas, on the plains of the Maryland Willie West. But here by Frank and Rick. Now, what am I saying? $2 a head. $2.85. $2.85. $3. $3.50. $3.75. The first up. Go to the man with the handlebar machine. That's the time, you little rat. Will you open your mouth? Okay, do it. Okay, necessary to act.
They started barking like a dog.
Right away.
You're a donkey, not a dog.
Be back in the press. We can press. Come on, you. Move. Shot? Have you seen anything of the size of a boy? He's about so big. Shouldn't I get this one? I've seen him at the concert 14th and Broadway this morning. Oh, I should
Quiet hospital zone.
Okay. Okay. Get up!
Oh boy. You're praying to the Lord.
Once upon a time, long ago, there was a poor, tired woodcutter who lived near the edge of a great forest. He had 2 children. A boy who was named. The food he could bring home for their supper was a little stale bread and a half pitcher of milk. He was so worried, as it was barely enough to keep his children from starving. Oh, what is to become of us? Cried the poor woodcutter. Our last bit of food gone. Hansel knew that Gretel had not intended to break the pitcher nor spill the milk, and tried to comfort her. But he knew too how worried his father was, and wanted to help him in some way. With a half loaf of stale bread under his arm, he took Gretel to the front porch, where he wanted to tell her about his plan to get food for their supper. We shall go into the forest and fill our baskets with Nice ripe berries, said Hansel. But Gretel was afraid. She thought they might get lost without their father. Hansel finally persuaded her to follow him, and the two children set out on their journey through the woods. Finally, Hansel began to break off pieces of bread and drop them along the path.
Cartoons. Well, I want to record this again,
We shall follow the trail of breadcrumbs
but this
back
time
to our house.
it's might be less longer, I think. Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
The children walked deeper and deeper into the dense forest, searching for berries. It was getting late, and their basket was still empty. Gretel wanted to start for home, but when they looked for the breadcrumbs, they were gone.
nice.
Don't be afraid, said Hansel. In the morning, we shall find our way home, somehow. Hansel and Gretel did not see the ugly green witch, but she saw them. Every living thing in the forest was afraid of the old witch, as it was said that she possessed strange magic powers. What a beautiful gingerbread house it was for 200 children to find in the lonesome forest. Hansel thought it strange that they hadn't noticed it before. The roof was made of ginger snaps, the chimney of blocks of taffy candy, and the sides were covered with frosted cookies. They were just about to eat the candy windowsill when they heard a voice say, "Nibble, nibble, little mouse. Who is nibbling at my house?" "Oh, you poor hungry children," the old woman said in a very cheerful voice. "I'm so glad you like my gingerbread house." Then she said in a more kindly voice than before, come inside, and I will give you something very nice to eat." Though the old witch was ugly and her face wrinkled and green, she spoke so pleasantly that the children trusted her. Hansel and Gretel were so very hungry, and there before them was a feast good enough for a king. The witch's table was spread with candies, puddings, sodas, and ice cream. Many more wonderful things than they had ever had at home. Suddenly, the old witch seized Hansel by the collar and jerked him out of the chair. And before he knew it, he found himself locked in a golden cage.
Oh, this might be okay.
Then she said to poor little Gretel, "Now you, child, put more wood on the fire. Go do as I say. We are going to bake gingerbread today." Hansel was very frightened, for she now understood what the old witch was planning to do. Poor Hansel was going to be baked into a gingerbread boy. "Now, child, Test the oven and see if it is hot enough, said the old witch. Gretel pretended not to know how to test the oven. Oh, you stupid girl, said the angry old witch. I will do it myself. Gretel saw her poor Hansel locked in the cage, and she knew what she must do.
We're all gonna die.
When the witch was destroyed, the enchantment of the gingerbread house was broken, and Hansel and Gretel were free. Because of Gretel's brave deed, the entire forest was now free of the witch's evil spell. The animals sent a quick-footed white rabbit to tell Hansel and Gretel how happy and how grateful they were, and to show them where the old witch had hidden her treasure chest of gold and silver and precious jewels. The woodcutter had been looking for his lost children and had almost given up hope when he found their basket. What a happy little family they were to be all together again. Now, with the wonderful treasure chest full of gold and jewels, they need never go hungry again. And they lived happily ever after.
Guys, this is the last one. So stick tuned. Sorry about that. Oh, what the heck is that thing? A few more minutes before this is over. Oh my goodness.
Oh, how's gonna kiss me? Get away from me! Look, you're a nice cow. I like you. But this place is only big enough for one of us. So get off this island! No, this is that. Untrust the wild life, my life is free. I live every day just to sleep and just to breathe. I'm all by myself and glad to be alone. All right, Robinson song, I'm happy all you can. What I do with you?
Good night, folks. We're running out of time.